I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to finally discuss with the industry how tortious interference works and what contractors can be doing about it. And some contractors struggle to try to sue insurance companies for bad faith, dealing with assignments of benefits and all of that.
Mhm.
And tortious interference is kind of a different angle on the same sort of a problem. But what have you seen recently that's pertinent to this?
From an overwhelming majority of the matters that come into us that we see, the thing that really kind of underlies it all is you start to notice that the industry itself for years, and just insurance in general, has been focused on this idea of bad faith and insurers engaging in bad faith activity. And that generally relates to the relationship between the insured and the insurance company. The powerful thing about tortious interference is it's a direct line of action for the contractor against the insurance company based on actions the insurance company is taking to interfere with their business. There may be elements of bad faith interwoven in a tortious interference action, but that's a whole separate cause of action that stands on its own, that the contractor doesn't need any assignment from the property owner to make that claim.
Yeah, exactly. So certain states have some limitations on what can be assigned,
Mhm.
and there is discussion in the industry about whether or when to use assignments of benefits. But the thing that I like so much about tortious interference is you don't need an assignment. You're not stepping into the shoes of the policyholder. You're remaining in your
Right,
own shoes,
right.
and you have the ability, if the facts are right, to prosecute the claim directly against the insurance company or the consultant, whomever is interfering in the contractor's relationship with the customer.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you mentioned insurance bad faith because, that's one of my most beloved practice areas. I love
Uh,
insurance bad faith law and litigating those cases, but we need valid enforceable assignments of insurance rights to do that. Um, in some states, depending on what type of claim the contractor is making, the tortious interference law in that jurisdiction may require proof that the defendant, that is the insurance company, was engaging in an independently wrongful act at the time that they interfered. For example, not just interfering, but also committing fraud in the process. And this can be an easy one sometimes if the insurance company is bad mouthing the contractor, which we know they do all the time, and they're making some provably false statements. So you've got fraud happening at the same time with interference with the contract. But what about other types of torts? So when they say you need to prove that the act was wrong in and of itself, in addition to the fact that it was an interference, you can look to all sorts of different things. Violation of the claims handling regulations, in my opinion, is one of the
mhm,
grounds to do that. And the insurance claims handling regulations are really
mhm,
broad and they require all sorts of good faith behavior and prompt
mhm,
responses, substantive responses. And, last week we were talking about adjusters ghosting the contractors. Well, if they're
mhm.
ghosting the contractor and they are violating the local claims handling regulations in the process, my argument is, and I think it's a strong one, that that satisfies the wrongful act part in order to make a claim against a carrier or the intermeddler for
Mhm.
tortious interference. And if that's true, then why not insurance bad faith? So let's say that there is an unreasonable delay in the release of payments that ends up in an unfair result that would satisfy the state's elements for insurance bad faith, and the contractor suffers as a result of that. Is that tortious interference? How many other types of torts can we bring in? I think there's a lot of them. Now, I haven't tested this in court, but I'm about to.
Well, logically, the underlying theory that you're going at, the facts are transferable because they happened if it's bad faith. Well, they happened if it's tortious interference. So I think you could get a lot of instances where, especially in some states that aren't favorable to assignments, is the policyholder could have a valid claim for bad faith, while at the same time the contractor has a valid claim for tortious interference in
Bingo.
the same matter.
Yep, exactly. And I think this can be a game changer.
I think it's a whole different way to look at it from the contractor's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, in so many of these cases, I agree with you that, what's really going on is tortious interference. And I spent a lot of time studying this and pondering it and trying to figure out the applicability of it, because there isn't much out there in the way of case law that talks about whether this particular fact pattern is tortious interference. But, the rules are really broad, like I said. And so I'm very optimistic about this. And I hope that these cases that we've commenced will be one small step toward shifting the balance of power between the restoration industry and the insurance industry. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an exciting opportunity. And I think it gets back to what we talk about a lot too, is documentation.
of
Your
course,
documentation and communication have to be excellent in order to provide the type of evidence that we would need or another attorney would need to really make these claims solid.
yep.
It
Amen,
has to
brother.
be, the documentation has to be there.
Yep. And we are going to have multiple future briefings that are dedicated entirely to documentation.
Documentation.
And I think that the documentation expectations may be elevating as more new technologies come out.
Mhm.
Well, did you use this gadget or did you use that gadget? And is 360 imaging the standard of care? I don't think
Mhm.
it is quite yet. I think that would be overstating it, but there's going to be more and more of an expectation for that as adjusters get more accustomed to seeing these 360 scans. And it's something that helps the insurance company to evaluate the claim more promptly. And it's expensive equipment to buy. And so you know where I'm going with this. I think that
Yes, I
should
do.
a compensable item, but that's a topic for a whole other day, right?
Uh, Endless topics.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited for Thursday.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's the start of a new beginning.
The restoration expert briefing is this Thursday and every Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And you can check it out by looking at restorationcrosscheck.com/briefing. We'll see you then.